If you're a fan of the Masters, and the fact that you're watching this video tells me you probably are, you have no doubt at some point seen the best players warming up on what has to be the single greatest practice facility in the entire world of golf. These 18 acres located to the north of the Augusta National property are known as the Tournament Practice Facility. Amazingly, despite its immense design and quality, it is only used about 12 days each year. That's the 7 days of the Masters Tournament Week, of course, 2 days for the Augusta National Women's Amateur, 1 day for the Drive, Chip, and Putt Championship on the Sunday before the Masters, and a few days here and there for member events. The rest of the year, like much of Augusta National, it is maintained, tweaked, and groomed to be in perfect condition for the second week of April. But what is the story behind its design? How did it come to be? What makes it so good? All very, very good questions, and to answer them, we have to go right back to the very beginning. Augusta National Golf Club opened in 1933. Famously the brainchild of Bobby Jones and created with the vision and mastery of Dr. Alistair Mackenzie, the course today looks largely like it did then. However, there have been several additions around the course, mainly designed with the Masters tournament in mind. In the early days of the tournament, players would warm up hitting balls in the area between the 9th and 18th holes, just below the level of the first tee. Here you can see the 9th fairway bending around in the background, and this is the large fairway bunker on the 8th hole. This photo is from the 1940 Masters tournament with an unnamed player hitting balls down the hill toward the 7th green. Keep in mind, the Masters in those days was a tournament with a field of around 50 players, so a large range wasn't necessarily required. This area was used as the practice area and an area for clinics for many years before players began using a more custom-designed range here on either side of Magnolia Lane as players arrive off Washington Road. You can see Gary Player using this range in 1959. Here's Arnold Palmer a year later, 1960. In this photo of Jackie Cubitt from 1964, you can see Augusta had installed bleachers for the patrons to watch players on the range. This photo is from the 1964 Masters. You see players hitting with Magnolia Lane on their right. Look closely and you'll even see the local Augusta National caddies in their white jumpsuits that the caddies still wear today, out on the range collecting balls as the players hit toward them. At this point in history, you can tell the tournament is growing, and as the Masters and golf gained in popularity, Augusta National began growing its facilities accordingly. This range on the west side of Magnolia Lane was improved, more seats for patrons were added, and this photo you see here is from the 1982 tournament. Again, you see the mass of spectator parking in the background. But while this practice area was conveniently located just steps from the Augusta clubhouse, it wasn't very big. In fact, draw a line from a practice tee to the back of the hitting area, and you'll see why this whole thing was about to become too small for the best players in the world. In fact, sometime in the 1990s, Augusta actually installed a 105-foot net at the back of the range to prevent balls from reaching Washington Road. Here's Tiger Woods on the range in 2009. So, back to that parking lot we mentioned before. It was located here in the very northern corner of the property. It was home to the majority of cars from patrons attending the tournament, and while this would seem like a natural place to put a practice area, the issue was, where would patrons park if you were going to build here? Thus, Augusta National looked west to this area around Berkman's Road. After years of negotiations and deals, the club purchased 85 acres of land and transformed it into an area for patron parking. It is still where you'll park your car today if you attend the Masters. That move cleared nearly 20 acres in this northern corner to create a new practice area. In 2004, Augusta Chairman Hootie Johnson announced the plan to upgrade the practice facilities, and architects Mackenzie and Ebert were hired to carry out the work. The project was led by Tom Fazio, who had been brought in previously by the club to work on modifications to the course. Along with the club, Fazio and the architects spoke with several top players about what they might want from the best practice area in the world, and then they set about creating exactly that. Thus, in 2007, work began on a new tournament practice facility. You can see early construction imagery here as they began creating greens, teeing areas, short game facilities, and all that players would need as they got ready for the Masters. And 2 years and $140 million later, the tournament practice facility was officially opened. Lucas Glover was among the first pros to visit the facility on a scouting trip in February that year. Here's what he said: "It just seems as though they've thought of everything, and that's pretty typical for them. I can't say enough. They've left no stone unturned." And he was right. You can see here where the old range was, and the size and scale of the new facility, complete with 8 meticulously designed greens, 2 sprawling fairway targets, built-in patron seating, parking, and this huge 30,000 square feet practice tee. This area, wide enough to allow around 70 players to hit all at the same time, is where most of the practice happens. Beneath this teeing area, the club even installed underground heating, meaning that even if play is delayed due to frost, players can still warm up ahead of their round. Remember, no stone left unturned. If we zoom in here, just right of the range, you'll see this building, known as the Caddy Facility or Golf Services Building. It's home to the famous white jumpsuits you see the caddies at Augusta National wear. Bear in mind, they need every size of jumpsuit, especially for the annual Par 3 tournament, where the caddies range from newborn kids of the players to the 7'2" frame of basketball player David Robinson, who looped for Corey Pavin at the event in 1997. Anyway, this building is a hub of activity each year in the early days of Masters Week. Caddies and players will often meet here, look over pin positions, stock up on supplies, and of course select their specific brand of golf ball before heading out to the hitting area. The building also has its own stash of the famous Augusta sandwiches for players and caddies to pack for a day on the course. Sources also tell us that the caddy room is home to, and I quote, "the best cheeseburger in Georgia," and even has 2 beer taps installed for those looking to relax after a particularly good, or perhaps bad, day at Augusta. But back to the practice area. More than 600 patrons can sit in one of these cushioned seats, looking out over the practice tee as players fine-tune their games for the first major of the year. There's more space for those patrons willing to stand. Now, take a look at the first green here. Does it look familiar to you? Perhaps not, but if we fly over to the second hole and look at the green, then you'll see it's almost identical. This is not a coincidence. You see, the second hole at Augusta National is a par 5, and likely the first time in a round, players will hit a wedge or pitch shot. So this green on the range was designed in the same orientation as that hole on number 2 to allow players to practice that specific shot before they tee off. Each of the 4 pin positions are on the screen as well. Again, that's the level of design that has gone into this facility. You'll see there's 3 mid-range greens here, ranging from around 140 yards to 210 yards. One with a bunker short left to suit a right-to-left approach shot, one with a bunker short right to suit a left-to-right shape, and the central green with no bunkers. The 2 fairway strips create this V shape at the top of the driving range, stretching back uphill to around 370 yards and allowing players to shape tee shots between the trees just as they will on the course. By moving position on the tee, you can again create right to left or left to right corridors, depending on what you're looking for. And just when you think it couldn't be more custom designed, check this out. Look at the top of the range by the fairway strips. Notice the addition of these bunkers in 2014. A nice visual addition, you might think, but of course, there's more at play here. Let's zoom in on this bunker on the right here. Does it look familiar? If you said yes, you're either an Augusta National member or a certified golf addict, because this bunker is a replica of the fairway bunker on the first hole. Look at the shape, the position of the trees to the right. The whole setting is almost identical. And there's more. Measure the distance from the tee to this bunker, and you'll see that, yes, it is the same distance as the bunker on the first hole is from the tees the pros use. It's designed on the ranges there so players can accurately simulate the first tee shot and perhaps practice fading a ball around this bunker before doing it in competition. As for the 2 bunkers on the left, I won't ask you the question again, I'll just tell you. They are clearly replicas of the bunkers on the left-hand side of the 5th hole. Look here. A tricky long par 4 on which players need to challenge these bunkers in order to shorten the hole, and thus the range provides them with the chance to practice exactly that. Again, measure the distance from the tee to the bunkers on the range, and yes, of course, that matches the distance on the hole itself. It's subtle, but it shows the immense level of detail we're talking about when it comes to this facility. As for this building at the back of the driving range, this is where we base ourselves during Masters Week. We, the journalists. It is the $40 million Augusta National Media Center, opened in 2018. You won't see it in photos or aerials, but there's actually an underground tunnel here that goes from the media center to the practice area, creating a quick and private route for media and players needing to get from one to the other, and just another example of the level of detail and infrastructure on site here at Augusta National. Another media component to the practice facility is this building. You may not recognize it from photos or from the air, but chances are you'll have seen it on TV. This is actually a custom-built television studio. This angle is likely more of what you've seen, with the practice range in the background as analysts and ex-players broadcast the event to the world. Now, back to the range and this area with 3 greens. This is the short game area of the facility. These 2 greens serve as an area for chips, pitches, and bunker practice, while this green is the main practice putting green for tournament week. One small quirk you might notice in this area is that the bunkers don't seem as deep as many of the bunkers on the course. While the Mackenzie bunkers on the course have huge faces and often leave players with difficult blind shots to tightly placed pin positions, the practice bunkers are more shallow. This, again, is by design. The shallower design allows players to see how their ball spins and reacts on the greens, giving players more feedback before they head out onto the course. Once again, another insight from top players on what they want from a practice area. As for the putting green here, you may have also seen this green near the first tee. This practice green is still used by players before walking to the first hole, but it's been reduced in size over the years to allow for better flow of patrons around the area that serves the first hole, 9th hole, 10th hole, and 18th hole. Typically, players will do the bulk of their putting work on this green at the practice area before making their way around the clubhouse and toward the first tee. In fact, on the short commute, they'll actually drive past the old practice area right here next to Magnolia Lane. They might even hope to one day use that range themselves. That's because this area that once served as the tournament range is now a champions-only area during Masters Week. Akin to the champions locker room inside the clubhouse, this small hitting area is reserved for players who have won a green jacket. In fact, you'll still see past champions using that range to this day, away from the cameras and the attention of the tournament practice facility. Call it a last slice of motivation for players as they head from the range to begin their round. And with that, a player's preparation is complete. The first tee awaits. They'll have no excuses. They've just used a $140 million practice area, and now it's time to start the Masters.